the I want to welcome everybody to our 2022, I can't even believe we're saying that, MLK celebration, sponsored by Lehigh, but also invited members of the Lehigh community to join us. We're going to do the format that we've been trying to do for a while, which is we're going to have a very short presentation. We have 3 different people to give very, very short presentations, and then we're going to break into groups and discuss a question related to what has been said for about 7 minutes. When you're in your groups, and I will say this again, please try to give everybody enough time to speak. I am someone who likes to speak. I tend to hog whatever's going on. If you're one of those people, be cognizant of the fact that you're speaking, and look around the room and see who's not speaking and ask them to speak again. So try to make it equitable. We want everyone to have a chance to say what they're saying, what they need to say. I lived with a man who would not speak unless you were very quiet for about a minute. It's very difficult for me, but some of us tend to fill in the space of, the dead space, and that people that are intimidated don't always get a chance to speak. Remember not to shame or blame even yourself. Try to use I statements and not you statements or they statements. When you speak for yourself when we're speaking in our discussion groups. We don't want to blame or shame anyone, and we want to make this a very inclusive situation. So if someone has something to say that you don't agree with, let them finish. Try and live in their moment before you say anything. Try not to interrupt. Try to let people have their whole thought get out there. And I know it's hard. It's hard for me. I like to talk. It's hard for me. I'm always interrupting people, which I try to watch. Okay. All right. Chad, would you like to say something about MLK Day?
Well, good afternoon. I want to thank and welcome each of you for joining us for today's program. It's being brought to you by the Martin Luther King Jr. Celebration Committee. I want to thank each of the members of the MLK Jr. Celebration Committee for their work on bringing us today's program, with a special thanks to committee members Renee Mercer, Chris Rodriguez, Jennifer Swan, and Christopher Burke. Today's program is an opportunity to acknowledge, remember, and celebrate the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Labeled by many as the greatest ethical, moral, and spiritual leader our country has ever produced, the great Dr. King dedicated his life working to ensure that all people are judged by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. We recognize that there are some people, most notably even some relatives of Dr. King himself, who encourage less talks and celebrations about Dr. King and more action. We support their call to action in ensuring that all of us are doing our part in establishing the egalitarian multiracial democracy that King dreamed about so many years ago. It is our desire that today's program is one of many steps taken by us here at Lehigh University in establishing the necessary actions that must occur in order to realize the beloved community where love, justice, and solidarity are actualized in everyday life that was so elegantly articulated by Dr. King. Again, thank you for joining us, and I'm gonna throw it back to Dr. Swan.
All right, so our first speaker is going to be Curtis Buie. And Curtis is a 5th grade teacher at the community school in Easton Area School District and has been a public school educator for the last 7 years. He is a graduate student at Lehigh, and he's enrolled in the Ed Leadership Program. Curtis?
Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. First and foremost, thank you to Lehigh University and the MLK Celebration Committee for the invitation, and to all of you who are here today to reflect on the life and legacy of Dr. King. For me, teaching as a second career is something that I transitioned into after spending about 10.5 years in a cubicle in a corporate setting. And along that way, I realized how important it was for me to be doing something that had a positive impact on people's lives, that I was making a difference. And I wasn't finding that in my current career. So at the same time, I had friends who were in education. Some were educators, some were administrators, and they encouraged me to look into teaching. They were convinced that I would be able to make a difference and kind of fill that void that I had of not being able to make a positive impact on people's lives. And they stressed that given the growing Black and Latino population of students and the very few teachers of color available to them, that would be something that I could really fit into nicely and make a difference. So I looked at two statistics that were kind of eye-opening. One is that Black male teachers make up about 2% of the teaching population. And also the other statistic was that Black males make up 34% of the prison population. So this is what our children see. And right now what's happening is there's a growing disparity between the diversity of the student population, which is growing increasingly diverse, and the diversity of the teaching population, which really is not that diverse and has been overwhelmingly white. And this matters because what we're seeing in this mismatch is a trend where students of color, especially those in marginalized communities, are falling behind academically and in their social and emotional development. And when speaking specifically about Black students, I came across this study that was really eye-opening. And that was that Black boys from marginalized communities having at least one Black male teacher or Black teacher in elementary school cuts the likelihood of them dropping out by 39% and raises college aspirations among marginalized students from both sexes by 19%. So when I think back to my K through 12 experience, I had one Black male teacher, and coincidentally, we had the same last name. But I remember the impression that he made on me and how he made me feel as a Black student, how I looked to him as a role model. So it does matter, and especially to students in those marginalized communities who have a chance to see someone who looks like them or someone who's been who had similar life experience in a position of authority like a teacher. It affects their achievement, it affects their social and emotional development as well. My first experience teaching was in Allentown. It was in Center City. It was a Title I community school. Most of the students are living in low income households and neighborhoods that were plagued with violence and other traumatic experiences that these students brought to school with them each day. And many of them, unfortunately, they knew a relative who was in prison or who had trouble with the law. But I remember that open house, the reactions from the parents. I remember being really nervous myself, it was my first teaching assignment, but the reactions from the parents were really surprising. They at the time, the school district was 92% white as far as its teachers. So they were really surprised to see a Black male in that role, someone that their child was going to be spending the year with, and they would be able to look up to me as a positive role model. So the comments were like, my child has never had a male teacher, or my child has never had a Black teacher. So I use that to make a connection with students, even before, we got started with the actual content, and not to any way diminish what my white cohorts were doing, but something has to be said about a child in a challenging situation in a marginalized community, seeing someone like them come out of that and be in a position of authority, maybe a teacher or something else that they can look up to. So that connection helped me establish a relationship with the parents and the students that was based on trust, and that trust opened the door to other learning opportunities and learning outcomes that may not have happened without that one experience. So for me, the lessons, they go beyond. Yes,
Your time is up.
I apologize.
You're okay. So sorry to cut him off, but we've got a really tight schedule. So I hope that you learned something from what Curtis had to say. And what I'd like you to do now, we're going to break you into groups, into smaller groups than we are now. And don't be afraid. It's okay. And we're going to talk a little bit about what were your role models. So think back, what role models did you have? How similar were they to you? And what made them role models? And so we'll go from there. Renee, are you ready to break us up into some groups? Okay, so see you in 7 minutes. 7. Got it. Do we have everyone?
Can you broadcast out invites again, Renee? Because it kind of popped up and then just went away.
Let me find you.
Looks like her. Lydia, is that you? No. All right.
Broadcast. I guess I gotta find you. I can't. Hold on. I don't see. There's a lot of people. Sorry. Give me a second.
That's okay. I could just actually.
Pull up the breakout rooms.
Oh, I
Yeah.
am.
I
Okay.
could change it there.
Let's see. There's 22 breakout rooms.
Okay.
Let's see. There. Not joined. Move. Move to. Oh. There you go, Chad.
Thank you.
Anybody else need a breakout room? Oh, here we go.
Do you need help, Renee?
No, no.
Okay.
Everybody should have an invitation.
Is there anyone in this room right now that would like to go to a breakout room that did not get an invite? Okay.
I would like one. I actually closed it when I was just joining. I didn't realize I was closing. I apologize for being late.
No worries. Let me
No,
find.
there's no problem.
Yeah.
You might be able to create a new breakout room with the new people that just joined.
Oh, here we go.
My inspiration to pick up a break or two. Not in anger, but in hope. To work toward.
Well, how about this? The people that are still with us, do you want to tell us about your role models? Who here wants to talk about a role model they've had? Anyone? No one speaks up, I might call on you because I'm a teacher. So anyone want to speak up? Adele, do you have a role model?
Yes, I do. I had multiple role models. First of all, I had my parents, my mother and my father as role model. And when I started school in the South. And my role models were all the teachers that I had from my first grade. We didn't have kindergarten in the South. We had first grade all through high school. And I had multiple role models in my teachers. And as an adult, I have multiple role models also, not just as a child, but as an adult too. And first of all, I had my pastors when I joined the churches in the North. I had my pastors as role models. Pastor Fred Davis, he's deceased now, and he's one of my role models. Now I'll be quiet. Thank you.
Thank you. Estelle, you want to tell us about your role models? Yeah, hold on, Estelle. Someone else is coming in. Estella? Are you there? Maybe Kelly. Kelly, do you want to tell us about your role models?
Sure. So I guess growing up, my main role model was always my mom. I've kind of modeled everything after her. She's a beautiful person. But as I got older, I had a professor in college who really opened my eyes up to a lot of different things that maybe I never thought about or I never experienced. And then recently I've got a couple coworkers who I'm really trying to model myself after. So I work and get to enjoy my role models daily.
Nice. Thank you. Renee, do you want to give them the 1 minute warning?
I was just about to say, yes,
Okay,
I
good.
can.
Let's do
Yeah.
that. Who else wants to talk about a role model? Donna?
My role model is my mom. She's always been there for me, and she's guided me all the way through my life and things like that. So it's just always been my mom. And now she's living with us, so I'm taking care of her at this point.
So yeah, I've had, the flip is very interesting. It really is. It really is. Alan, how's your role model?
Sorry, I was muted and turned off when I was eating. To the degree I had a role model, I think the one person I would identify was my mother, who was very kind of a set of moral principles was evident in the way she thought, sometimes in the way she corrected us, and was very shaped by having been born in 1929 at the start of the Depression and growing up in an immigrant family that was kind of finding its way in the country under its particular circumstances of, on the one hand, being poor and always claimed that they didn't know it, and on the other hand, being Eastern European Jews who were beginning later in her life to be included as white in America, and very shaped by all of that, and I think aware of it.
Excellent.
I'm closing out the breakout rooms.
Yes, I was just going to say they need to close now. Right now. We're already behind time.
Yeah.
Robin is up next. Let's get people back. So I think Renee, we should start closing them 1 minute before we want people in the room, because it takes them a minute to close. Okay.
I was hoping pushing the button would just bring everybody back. It didn't work.
It takes a minute.
I see that.
That's the 1 minute warning, is pushing the
Okay.
button to close. Okay.
Here they come. 30 seconds.
Okay. All right. How do people do in their breakout rooms? Good. Who is in breakout room number 2? Do you remember your rooms? Anyone? Who would like to say something about their breakout room? You might want to put if you know your raise hand, because that'll bring you to the front where I can see you. But if you don't, I can just call in people at random. Who would like to say something about their role models? Anyone?
Well, let me start.
Go ahead, Henry.
It's Henry Odie, and I would share that in my group that it was interesting that role models came from within, parents or grandparents who were very influential. Obviously, that we talked about role modeling could be positive or negative, but in my group, it seemed that it was pretty consistent. It was all positive.
Nice. Suzanne, your hand is up. You want to speak?
Yes. I shared in my group how I'm a pastor, and it really wasn't, even though a male pastor encouraged me to become a pastor, I put it off and went into occupational therapy until I met a female pastor, and then thought, oh, I could do it. So I really can totally appreciate how important it would be for people, not just gender, but color as well, to have people in their life that they could see that, yeah, I could do that. Thank you.
Welcome. Simone, your hand is up.
Yes, hi. So our group had different answers, and so they talked about the limited amount of diversity that they had in Sunday school. And I want to piggyback off of something Dr. Odie said, which really resonates with me about the internal role modeling. I think for me, what happened in high school was the teachers, they didn't have anyone to model their behavior after. As a matter of fact, our principal was a man of color. I thought, we weren't quite sure, right? Because, you know, I just came to America. But what I found is the negative expectation or the low bar expectations my teachers had of me. You know, they told me that I should go to cooking school rather than to science and things like that. The low bar that they had. Actually, I repurposed that pain, and I repurposed those negative things and use it as fuel. As a matter of fact, to this day, I have that particular teacher's picture in any of my books that I'm studying or doing anything. And so my intestinal fortitude, being from a place where I was, you know, everyone looked like me, and coming to America, I had that sense of pride anyway, but I really had to call upon it and to counteract the negative things that were said to me. Now, everyone is not able to do that, but I repurposed the pain, and you know, I achieved the success that I needed to as a result. Thank you for letting me talk.
So Bridget, you have your hand up, and then we need, I hate to rush people. We have a really packed program. So go ahead, Bridget.
Well, in our group, I was just saying, like Dr. Odie said, the role model inside the home is my parent. But what is unique about it, I was able to transition their behaviors and what they taught me down to raising my children. And I think that legacy of role models is very important as we continue to bring up and raise our children in the newer times.
Excellent. Thank you. And I hope people are getting a chance to share. I know we're really packed for time, so I apologize. I keep saying that. So I want to introduce our next speaker, Robin Alozie, who has a master's in education, and she is the assistant principal at Freedom High School. Robin serves on the board of directors for the Pennsylvania Teachers Advisory Council as the co-chair of the Publications Committee. And Robin was a special education teacher in the Bethlehem Area School District and an instructor of academic leadership seminar program. Her work as an instructor of the Lady Leaders earned her the 2019 Teacher as Hero Award, which is presented to exceptional educators who leverage their excellence in teaching to honor student voices, both inside and outside the classroom, foster diversity in the classroom, teach how to resolve conflicts respectfully, how to take risks in order to remove an obstacle to a student's liberty, and incorporate the above concepts related to relationships with colleagues and community members. And recently, Robin attained her second master's degree in educational leadership, specializing in urban education, race, and equity. Robin's bio includes the words of Shirley Chisholm, which is, "Service is the rent we pay for the privilege of living on this earth." Robin?
Thank you, Jennifer. First, I'd like to thank the Martin Luther King Committee here at Lehigh for inviting me to be part of the program. And I want to also thank my fellow educators, past and present, for the much needed work that is done day in and day out. We're never off the clock. And I'd like to thank my parents, my church family, my mentors along the way for the wisdom and support, because I know that I wouldn't have been able to get this far without all of you. And finally, to thank my students for, they are the reason why I went into education to begin with. So I want to start with a quote from Vince Lombardi. "Excellence can be obtained if you care more than others think is wise, risk more than others think is safe, and dream more than others think is practical, expect more than others think is possible." So most of the people in this room, I'm going to assume are adults. I did invite some of my lady leaders, but I don't know if they're here or not. But for the adults, when you're asking our youth, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I challenge you to change that wording to as being a part of something bigger. While using your strengths, your gifts, your talents, what problem could you solve? And you'll see how students will shine and how they could rise to that bar of excellence. There's a misconception about school that learning is just about academics with the 3 R's, the reading, writing, and arithmetic. But we're not just teaching content, we're teaching and we're meeting a lot of needs to eliminate those barriers to learning. So I would like to add, which is a theme that we have at Freedom under the leadership of my building principal on the stage, resilience and restoration. So there's gonna be 5 R's. Just like in The Wizard of Oz, when the curtain was pulled back to show the wizard, I use that analogy for COVID, right? Because COVID pulled back that curtain to show the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to education. But it also showed how critical and involved education and educators are to the success of not just our students, but our families and our nation as a whole. The barriers and challenges to learning were amplified. And one day in March of 2020, leaders in education, they were tasked to be creative and persistent in trying to continue that learning. So everybody, not just in education, were affected. So I'm here to take a moment to witness the good, some of the good, and focus on being more solution-based. So before we entered in this reaction mode of COVID, Bethel Area School District was very progressive in the sense of adopting restorative practices on a district level back in 2012. And then we continue to make it prominent in our culture building efforts. Through trauma-informed care practices, we have adopted and ingrained that into all of the work that we do, and under the leadership of those who recognize that mental health matters. Bethel Area School District had already implemented a one-to-one Chromebook initiative while working with community partners to work toward a goal of citywide free Wi-Fi. And again, this was pre-COVID. And I would be wrong not to mention Dr. Vivian Robledo, who she has been in the forefront of making sure that all of our district initiatives of excellence is seen through an equity lens. So I was asked to serve on this panel for the work I have done, but there's no way that in this 5 minutes, I would be able to speak on all the experience I've had with young, talented, and gifted students. However, I will tell you that the key to success, my success and their success, has been relationships, connections, and providing a space for voice. It takes a community to raise a child. And along with other passionate and caring adults, speaking on the Lady Leaders program specifically, we connected students with alumni and community partners for mentorship and support. Together, we created a space for this diverse group of young ladies to be themselves, to learn how to love themselves and each other, and ultimately to embrace the beauty in diversity. So from both my personal and professional experience, learning how to build and maintain connections and finding and having your voice acknowledged are the keys to success for today's youth. And I would say for the adults that are working with them too.
Robin?
Thank you. I'm done. Thank
Your
you.
time's up. Okay, so what I want to do next, we want to reflect on this. And one of the things that Robin was asking and what Robin was pointing to was how adults really play a big role in education. And so her question was, every child needs a caring adult, and connections are the key to success in education. So what connections have you managed to pull together in that have sustained you during the pandemic? And how have you kept those connections together during this time of isolation? So we're going to throw you back into your groups. Ready, Renee? Go. Oh, we still have 20 people here.
Everybody should be assigned to a room. If you need it again, let me know.
I think we have some people that are refusing to go to their room.
That's okay.
I think that's what we have. Don't have to do a group here with people that do not want to go to the room. Is anybody struggling to find their room? Does
If anybody needs something, let me know.
anybody need help finding a room to go to? Okay, so people that refuse to go to a room, how are you doing? Good, is everybody good? So let's talk a little bit about connections that we forged and how those connections have managed to sustain us during the pandemic. Who's still here?
This is Hasshan. I'm still
We
here.
have Hasshan. Hassan's still here. You want to talk about your connections, Hasshan?
Yeah, I mean, without them, right, I couldn't have made it through this. So just checking in with folks, people checking in with me when I wasn't when I didn't realize I needed to communicate, just making sure that I was okay and reminding me how loved and valuable that I am. So connections are everything.
Anybody else want to talk about their connections? Melissa? This may not be there. It's new. Haydenbrook, do you want to speak up? I see your chat. No, yes, no. Amy? Deanna?
I'll talk. If I can give a shout out to our amazing coordinators at Lehigh, especially in our STEM, we made it a point, like we knew this was a stressful time and we made it a point once a week that we just got together and supported each other and whatever we needed, if it was just a space to chat or if we needed something, we would send little like encouraging letters to each other through the mail. Like they knew what we needed, and I'm so blessed to have those ladies because it would have been a very, very different year, 2 years, and we're still continuing now. So very grateful.
I found that the pandemic actually strengthened some of my relationships because at the very beginning, when I was particularly freaked out, I don't know how anybody else was, but I thought for sure I was going to die, which I did not, obviously. I strengthened connections with people that I hadn't seen in a long time who live very far from me, but with the Zoom, we were able to do a couple of happy hours where we got together and had a drink, and we haven't had a drink for a while. And so it was fun actually to have the Zoom and be able to do those kinds of things over the pandemic. So in some ways, the pandemic actually helped me with my relationships. Does anybody else want to say anything in the room that we're in? Who's still on? Donna Taggart is here. She might be able to speak. The rest of them. I can come back to you, Adele. You're still there.
Okay, I'll speak again. During the pandemic, as you stated, it did provide more of a closeness from everybody that hadn't seen each other for several months. I was with a bunch of walking ladies that we walked 3 times a week.
Nice.
I was able to be with a group of ladies from my church, we call it the Connect Group, that we met via Zoom. And I just thank God for providing the technology that we were able to have Zoom so that we can connect with people during this pandemic via Zoom or telephone, which is great.
Right. That's very true. It is. I was very grateful for that because it has been a lifeline for me. There are some days where I don't leave my house at all, but I do have either a phone call or a Zoom with someone, and it really does keep me connected to the community. So I don't feel quite so isolated. So yeah, it's been great. So anybody else in our tiny little room? Who else wants to speak? I think some people are inhibited from speaking. When do we bring them all back? At 12:39? Is that right? Renee?
I got 2 more minutes. In 57 seconds, I'll push the button. I'm learning.
And then Hasshan is up after that. Oh, I should cue up the video. I'll do that in the next break.
Can I get like a 60-second warning or something if I'm running over?
You want me to put my finger up like this?
I
Give
don't
you
know.
1 minute.
Yeah, I have to make sure I can see you then. Oh, you're right under me. Yep, perfect.
Will that work?
Yes, ma'am.
I could pop you in the chat or something.
No, if you put your finger, I can see you.
Okay. All right. We can do it that way.
Thank you.
5 minutes is really short.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna work to keep it short. I'm not really a long speaker, so.
It quickly gets away from you.
Bringing them back.
Okay. All right, so then we'll have that. And then I'll cue up the video for the end and we'll go from there. Welcome back, everyone. How was this discussion? Did you have a good discussion on this one? Does anybody want to comment on their discussion? Anyone? You can either raise your hand or you can just speak. Either one of those things is fine.
This meeting is being recorded.
Does anyone want to comment on their room?
My breakout room was awesome. We actually connected. I shared my contact, talked about Promise Neighborhood of Lehigh Valley and the outreach team and our youth group and a lot of other things that we have going on for our community outreach.
Nice. Very nice, Darnell. Thank you.
Yeah, in our group, we talked about how technology has been a godsend to keep us connected during this, especially during this time of COVID. And I mentioned that I retired from IBM after so many years working in technology, both IBM and AT&T, and also that there has been a link has been lost as a result of our young kids growing up with cell phones in their hands, as opposed to writing letters like many years ago. I remember penmanship was very important when I was in school. I don't think it's so much so now. So that was the gist of our conversation.
Very nice. Thank you, Sam. Anybody else want to comment on their room?
I will. Somebody asked me to share this, so I will. We talked a bit about something Robin said that we found wonderful about the way they're thinking at Freedom, which had to do with the transition from working with children as if the question is, what do you want to be when you grow up, to working with question where the preferred reality is of what thing larger than yourself do you want to be a part as you grow up. And the importance that's been emphasized about that human need through the pandemic of what larger thing do I want to be a part, and how we might think about that human need in terms of how we run organizations after the pandemic, because we can't claim that we were so great at that before.
Nice. Thank you, Ellen. That's very nice. Mary.
Thanks. As we were talking about, as bad as the pandemic was, there are some things that we want to carry forward. Mindfulness was a big part of that. And also the need to approach our students, and I'm speaking about college students, approach our students as human beings, as living, breathing people outside the classroom, as well as students trying to finish our assignments. that seems to be something that we want to take forward.
I hope we can do that. And thank you for that. I hope we can do that. I hope that's a lesson that we learn about how important relationships are to all members of our community. All right, so we have our last speaker is going to be Hasshan. So Hasshan Batts is a prison survivor, a healer, a son, a father, a grandfather, a brother, a husband, and a friend. In addition, Hasshan is a community epidemiologist, a community-based participatory researcher, a leading expert on trauma-informed care, on reentry and community engagement, and a dynamic motivational speaker. Hasshan is the founder and president of the Prison Survivors Network, the executive director of the Promised Neighborhoods of the Lehigh Valley. He's an adjunct professor. He's a Lehigh University postdoctoral research fellow, a Rider Pool Collective Impact Fellow, Practitioners Research and Scholarship Institute Writing Fellow. He's a distinguished Robert Wood Johnson Culture of Health Leader, Pennsylvania Commission on Governors Advisory Commission on African American Affairs. He's a member of the Pennsylvania Reentry Council. He's a founding member of the Society for Healing and Study of Historical Trauma, founding board member of the Northeast Pennsylvania chapter of the National Association of Black Social Workers, and a board member of the Resurrected Community Development Corporation and Penn State Extension. I am exhausted just reading that. Can I just say that? Hasshan, yeah. Hasshan holds a joint.
That's enough. Yeah.
Is that enough? All right, Hasshan.
Well, I prefer to be introduced from how you know me anyway. Yes. All right, let me begin because we're short on time, right? Yes. So Jay-Z said that the genius thing we did was we never gave up. We didn't quit, right? And that's why we're here. That's the message of Dr. King. And we stand on the shoulders of the ancestors and the elders that refuse to quit. It runs through our DNA. The individuals, the families, the communities, and also the organizations. So as Dr. King talked about this idea of a beloved community, we want to talk about who and where are the organizations that are offering this idea of radical welcome, that are offering this idea of beloved community, that recognize that we are each other's medicine. It is the people, and it's also the institutions and the organizations that are made up of people, right? So I have to recognize that we stand here on stolen land and stolen labor and oftentimes stolen scholarship. So I want to recognize some of the warriors of the spaces that we're in and the liberated thinkers at Lehigh that oftentimes get forgotten, right? So when we talk about mentorship and support, I wouldn't be here in this work had it not been for our elder Camilla Green, who's on our board, who's on the call, and also Dr. Syria Lang, who goes above and beyond to partner with our community, right? Because that is what's necessary for us to get to that beloved community, is this idea of scholar activist. So the challenge to the folks at Lehigh, the challenge to educators is how do you step outside of those four walls? The challenge to doctors is how do you step outside of those four walls? The challenge to accountants is how do you step outside of those four walls? And how do the institutions do better to care for our people? Also, we want to recognize Valerie Taylor, Veray Vanell, Melissa Jimenez Garcia, Kwame, Scott Burden, and Leslie Chow. I am the executive director of the Promised Neighborhoods of Lehigh Valley. It takes partnership, right? Promised Neighborhoods is a Black-led, anti-racist, liberation-based grassroots organization that is focused on healing and wellness. And we do this through violence prevention and reentry, racial justice and health equity, and community capacity building. The goals of our programming are to increase hope, to increase a sense of belonging, and to increase agency, meaning that I can make purposeful decisions in my life and in my community. They are interconnected. And this was the thought and the conversation in King's letter from a Birmingham jail, that interconnectedness, man. We always talk about this Ubuntu principle. I am because we are, therefore because we are, I am. I am because we are, therefore because we are, I am. Yo soy porque nosotros somos. The pain and experience that I have, and COVID has reiterated this for us, right? COVID has taught us this if we didn't know this. The pain that I have, the experiences that I have impact people all across the world. So my reminder is that we have to work towards this beloved community At Promise Neighborhoods, we call it Radical Welcome. And it means, how do we let people know that even when they don't show up as their best selves, that they are one of us? And how do institutions begin to make better decisions and organizations within the community make better decisions? Thank you very much. That warning was very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Hasshan. Very good. So for our very last breakout room, we're going to kind of follow up on what Hasshan said, which is that everyone needs a caring organization or a community to thrive. And what do you need to be courageous, to show up differently in your community, to enhance Black excellence by supporting Black leadership? So, are we ready for our last breakout? All right, Renee.
Everyone's assigned. If you need me to put you in a room, let me know.
Renee? Hey, it's Gretchen. I was.
Oh.
Gretchen.
I lost you. Sorry. What was that?
She's frozen.
Jennifer, what was the third question again? I just got a text asking what the question was.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I accidentally left. I was in group 14 before, and I'm sorry.
No
problem. You can get down to it. Just look, there should be a thing at the bottom that says join a breakout room. Do you see it says more at the bottom of your screen? If you click on that, it should tell you you can join a breakout room. Can you click on it? Do you see the room?
No.
Okay. What room was she want to send her?
Trying to find her in the list here. Give me 1 minute.
Like I had left, I was in group 14 before it said. It was with.
There we are. Okay. Moving in.
What was the question? The question was, what do you need to be courageous, to show up differently in your community, to enhance Black excellence by supporting Black leadership?
Wow. Can you copy that to me if you have that? I've tried to type it and it wasn't fast enough.
If I can get it to everyone.
Put that in the chat and then I'll send that through. Thank you.
Excuse me. Yes. I'm so sorry. I didn't get moved.
1 second. 14. Here we are. Okay, try. Did you see an invite?
No. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Join ours. We're gonna do one here too.
Okay.
So what do people need to be empowered? Does anybody want to speak? Amina, do you want to tell people what you need?
The question was, what do we need to be empowered?
To be empowered to speak up to Black leadership.
Sorry, I don't think I fully understand the question.
It's a tough question.
What do we need to fully be in,
what do you need to help your community really work together is the way I interpret that.
Oh, I think that we really need a group of diverse people, a lot of different peoples coming together with different ideas to reach one goal or one idea, so they can everybody can put their thoughts in and we can come up with a solution for everyone. And I think that having different voices, like Black voices, Hispanic, Native American, a white, I feel like it provides insight to everybody's individualized experiences. And we can always find some sort of common ground where everyone is happy. And I feel like if we don't, there's room for somebody to be offended or left out, or somebody's needs to not be met.
Interesting. Ira, do you want to comment on your empowerment?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, along like what Amina saying, a bit like, again, having your diverse opinions heard and that they're mattered, and there's a fair hearing of that, empowerment, that your idea can be put in the mix, or that it's being fairly evaluated. Again, it's not easy to please everybody. So that, invariably some people are disappointed, but at least you have the power to be heard and fairly considered, and whatever, I guess, the situation, might be. Yeah.
Do you feel empowered to speak up?
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
good.
Yeah, I totally do. Again, with the people that we have, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, for me, it comes up, a little bit different place, obviously not with race, but as like religion and being Jewish, and like there's invariably things that I've sort of spoken up about, along the way, for me, and that's because of right where I come from, and a lot of what I experienced. But yeah.
Interesting. Does anybody else want to comment? Kimberly or Melissa, or I see we've been joined by Vivian. Vivian, do you want to speak?
Unfortunately, I missed that, so I'll speak up in a little bit once I get the context. I was just leaving another program. Thank you.
Does anybody else want to speak?
We have about 2 minutes yet. Do we want to bring them back?
Wait a minute. I was trying to queue up that
okay
thing. I got that queued up. So yeah, I think we need to bring people back now, because we're gonna run out of time to watch the little video. So bring them back.
You got it, Cliff.
How did everyone do in their last breakout? Good? Excellent. Does anybody want to comment on what they might need to be empowered? Anyone? Did someone speak? Sonia? No, yes, no.
Yes.
Okay. Did you want to speak?
No, I wanted to, if you can repeat that, because when I was coming in from the group, I missed something.
Oh, all I wanted to say was, does anybody want to speak on what they learned?
Hey,
Yes, I would like to
Jennifer,
talk.
real quick.
Oh,
and
sorry.
just share the one of the things we talked about really quickly was the importance of having those affinity groups as an outlet, as a network, as a place of support, place you can go to and validate your experiences, or just for self-care. And we have such a group here, started by Rick Hall over in Student Affairs, a group of us that meet together, that it has been a valuable place where you experience community and a sense of brotherhood at the same time. And it's been very helpful.
Thank you, Donald. And I just want to say, it's not that hard to start a group. A lot of stuff that you read about people who are very powerful leaders in their community started with just 1-2 people getting together and deciding they wanted to do something. So I appreciate that, Donald. Does anybody else want to comment? Anyone? Yes, no, yes. So in the interest of time, we have a very short clip from Dr. King that I want to show because I do, Renee, you need to allow me to do screen share. I do want to let us leave on a note from Martin Luther King. This is a very short, it's only 3 minutes, but as you can imagine, the whole thing is amazing. And we can send around the link if you'd like the link, but power through YouTube and look up something on Martin Luther King if you're interested. It is his day. Let me share my screen. And we will start here. All right, and I just want to thank everyone for really participating. It's been great. Thanks very much.
Already have some noble examples of Black men and Black women who demonstrated to us that human nature cannot be cataloged. They in their own lives have walked through long and desolate nights of oppression, and yet they've risen up and plunged against cloud-filled nights of affliction, new and blazing stars of inspiration. So from an old slave cabin of Virginia's hills, Booker T. Washington rose up, be one of America's great leaders. He lit a torch in Alabama. Darkness fled in that setting. Yes, you should know this because it's in your own city. From a poverty-stricken area of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Marion Anderson rose up to be the world's greatest contralto, so that a Toscanini could say that a voice like this comes only once in a century. And Sibelius of Finland could say, my roof is too low for such a voice, from the red hills of Gordon County, Georgia. And the arms of a mother who could neither read nor write, Roland Hayes rose up to be one of the world's great singers and carried his melodious voice into the palaces and mansions of kings and queens. From crippling circumstances, there came a George Washington Carver to carve for himself an imperishable niche in the annals of science. There was a star in the diplomatic sky, and then came Ralph Bunce, the grandson of a slave preacher. He reached up and grabbed it and allowed it to shine in his life with all of its scintillating beauty. There was a star in the athletic sky. Then came Jackie Robinson in his day, and Willie Mays in his day with their powerful bats and their calm spirits. Then came Jesse Owens with his fleet and dashing feet. Then came Joe Louis and Muhammad Ali with their educated fists. All of them came to tell us that we can be somebody. And to justify the conviction of the poet, fleecy locks and black complexion cannot forfeit nature's claim. Skin may differ, but affection dwells in black and white the same. If I were so tall as to reach the pole, or to grasp the ocean at a span, I must be measured by my soul. The mind is the standard of the man. Finally,
and unfortunately, that's what we have time for today. So it's 1 o'clock. I want to honor everybody that has to get back to their work. Let's give everybody a big hand for all of the sharing that you did. And thank you very, very much for coming. And I hope that the rest of your day goes very well. Thank you all.
Jennifer, we have a
Thank
few
you.
requests for the link. Are you able to put the link in the chat?
I can put the link in the chat.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Thank you for having this presentation.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was
The
very
link.
nice. Thank you.
There's the link.
Let me see, where is it? Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
All right, thank you so much.
You're quite welcome. Thank you all for coming. It's been quite a pleasure.